Zenless Zone Zero is finally releasing on all platforms in less than 1 week. Ellen Jo is going to be our debut first banner character, and she's a powerhouse. In today's video, we're going to break down everything about our sleepy shark girl so that you are ready to use and build her properly. Everything from her backstory and lore, how to use her kit, and the perfect build so you can maximize her potential. Grab yourself some shark food, I guess, and let's do this. Ellen Jo belongs to the Victoria Housekeeping Co faction, along with Corin Wix, Von Lycone, and Alexandrina Sebastione. Most of the very limited story information we have on Ellen so far is from the Zenless Zone Zero website. Ellen likes the simple things. She works smarter, not harder, and she makes sure to get plenty of rest in. One of her mottos is take breaks at the right time to minimize the annoyance of working. And I'm sure most of us can totally agree with that sentiment. Perhaps this is even seen in some of her animations, like her beautiful ultimate. When I did the story in the last closed beta test, the interlude where I ended was right before the Housekeeping Company's arc. So for this, I'm really hoping there's tons more Ellen info when we do get the full launch. In fact, during the 1.0 livestream today, the devs have already said they expanded the story even further, which is fantastic because Ellen is so cool and I can't wait to know more. But now let's get into her kit. For someone who likes simplicity, Ellen's kit is actually one of the more complex so far in Zenless Zone Zero. She is of course our S-rank ICE DPS agent that focuses on high damage loops to quickly dispatch her opponents. She will heavily focus on a few things, mainly her flash freeze charges and everything that she can do from her dash state. Don't worry though, since her kit is a bit convoluted at first glance, we're really gonna break it down and explain it so everyone can understand her full power. Flash freeze charges are her unique mechanic in which her kit will focus. These are shown under her icon in the top left by the team bar, and she can hold up to 6. Depending on these charges that you have, certain moves in her kit are going to get extra abilities, damage, and power-ups. Here's a little table describing the ways to get and spend these flash freeze points. The flash freeze state itself is active whenever she has any of these charges. Her weapon will also indicate this with an ice effect. Now let's break down all of her moveset and see how her kit changes depending on the energy and these flash freeze charges. Ellen's basic attack without flash freeze is called Teeth Trimming. This will unleash up to 3 attacks which will do physical / damage. During the third hit, you can hold the basic attack button to extend the duration. When she has flash freeze charges, the move is called Flash Freeze Trimming instead. Each attack of the 3-hit combo will consume 1 point of flash freeze, but the move will deal massive ice damage instead of physical. Now on to Ellen's special attack. Without energy or charges, the skill is called Drift. Ellen will do a tail sweep which will deal ice / damage. In addition, her anti-interrupt level will be increased while using this, basically meaning she shouldn't be able to really be cancelled out of it. For the most part, you won't really be using this without energy, same with the basic attack where you pretty much always have flash freeze charges. Once Ellen does have enough energy, she gets her EX special attack. This will perform a much more forceful, higher damage tail whack attack, which will deal ice damage. As we saw in our chart earlier, this will also grant 1 stack of flash freeze. After this move is done, you can instantly follow up with the so-called enhanced basic attack, which will of course cost a flash freeze charge. If Ellen has the 2 bars of energy when using EX tail swipe, you can do an extension of this move called Shark Nami. This is done by hitting that skill button again after the tail swipe, and it looks very cool. This move will do a series of powerful slashes, also granting a flash freeze charge. She's also invulnerable while doing this animation as well. The core idea for this skill is to always be comboing that second hit of tail swipe or Shark Nami into basic when you have the energy for it. Ellen's moveset really has cool combos like this and synergizes very well with the main thing that her kit will revolve around, her dodge mechanics. That being said, Ellen's dodge is extremely important, probably more so than most characters. First, we'll talk about her normal dash attacks, which do not require the roaming state. That term will make more sense once we get to the really good dash attacks. Like most of her kit, Ellen's normal dash attack changes based on flash freeze charge. charges. Her chargeless dash attack, Monstrous Wave, will deal physical damage. It is just a dashing slash attack. If you have a flash freeze charge, this damage will become ice instead and consume 1 point. Our Sleepy Shark Girl's dodge counter is called Reef Rock. Pressing basic attack during a perfect dodge will simply just do ice damage through a cutting attack. Like most dodge counters in the game, she will be invulnerable during this. Primarily for her dodge, we want to focus on the roaming state. By holding or double pressing her dodge button, she will enter this roaming hunt. This will cause her to run into a permanent dash with increased run speed until you release it. The roaming state leads into a good bit of moves in her kit, so it's very important. Plus, it's always fun running around as a shark girl. If you perfect dodge an opponent, you'll gain the quick charge effect, which is a really good segue into our dash attack Arctic Ambush. This incredible move is activated while in that roaming state we just discussed. After pressing basic attack during this dash, Ellen will deliver a spinning slash move followed by a scissor attack, both dealing ice damage. Here's where it gets really interesting. You will gain 1 point of flash freeze charge when the scissor attack hits. However, if you hold this basic attack button once you're in that roaming state, you will charge the scissors. When you do this charge scissor strike instead, you will gain 3 stacks of flash freeze. If the enemy is already frozen when you hit the charge strike, it will immediately cause shatter. If you need a refresher course on attribute anomalies, freeze, shatter, and all of that, feel free to check out that full Zenless Zone Zero guide that I made. Ellen's anti-interrupt increases while holding this charge move, and her damage taken is reduced by 40%. She'll also be partially invulnerable during the first part of the attack. Optimally, this dash attack is a great way to rack up the flash freeze charges that you need for your enhanced basic attacks. During the beta, I would commonly spam roaming state into charge dash attack. Of course, this will be doing immense ice damage and gaining those 3 charges. Using those basics after this are going to use up those charges and do even more ice damage. Then once her energy gets high enough, I would use her EX special, which will increase even more damage. Also, don't forget that when you use EX special, you can also follow that up with basic attack. I know that was a lot of words and mumbo jumbo that I threw at you, so if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer each one that I can. Basically, just remember to use roaming state, that charge dash attack Arctic Ambush to get charges. Then either follow that up with your EX special if you have enough energy, or basic attacks. There's also going to be a really good tutorial available when the game launches on July 4th. Now for her ultimate. Ellen Jo has one of, if not the coolest ultimate in the entire game. Although I'm kind of partial to Billy Kid because he's my favorite character. When your decibel rating is at 3000, which is the max, she's ready to give us some attitude. Shark Girl will roll her eyes at us, perform this beautiful cinematic ult. She will crash down and unleash an ice storm, followed by a powerful scissor attack, doing huge ice damage. The best option is to use this right when you get 3000 so you can just keep stacking up decibel rating, but it's important to remember that every character on your team shares the same amount of ult charge. The last thing in Ellen's kit that we need to talk about are her core passives, starting with Sharp-Toothed. This just simply states that Ellen's crit damage will increase by 50% when using dash attack Arctic Ambush or flash freeze trimming. Remember, those are the really good dash attack we talked about and her really good flash freeze basic attack. As you level up more characters in Zenless Zone Zero, you have access to more passives. I believe it's level 15 where you get the next one. Ellen Jo's is called Rising Storm. If another character in your squad shares ice attribute or is also from the Victoria Housekeeping Company, Ellen gets further buffs. This states that when Ellen deals ice damage, any following damage will be increased by 3% for 10 seconds. But here's the crazy part. This can stack up to 10 times for a total of 30%. Each time you use ice damage, the time limit extends. So yeah, it's a bit crazy. In general, Ellen's mechanics are really just going to focus on stacking and using those flash freeze charges correctly. She has a very fast-paced style, but with massive ice damage built into her kit. You'll also find that you're going to get a ton of attribute anomaly through the freezes and shattering. Either way, she will take some practice to master, but she is an insanely powerful unit for Zenless Zone Zero to start off with. With how many free pulls we're getting from the livestream announced today, I personally highly recommend trying to get her. Let's now just take a quick note for her team synergies. Her best friends from the Victoria Housekeeping Company are going to be her best teammates, specifically Von Lycone. This handsomely dashing wolfman is also an ice unit from the Victoria Housekeeping Company, so both of their core passives will automatically be met. So Kaku is another ice unit that can pair with Ellen to meet that core passive, even though she's not from the same faction. If you run all three of them together, you got yourself a pretty dang good mono ice team. Although if I do pull her from the standard banner, I'll probably end up using Alexandrina for more of that support Buffy kind of role. Now that we know the details of Ellen's kit, it's finally time to discuss her best build to maximize the potential. Let's start with the weapons of Zenless, the W engines. Her best in slot W engine will be Deep Sea Visitor, the one made exclusively for her. This engine will increase her ice damage by a whopping 25%, as well as crit rate by 20% for 8 seconds after she deals ice damage to any enemy. With Ellen's entire kit, especially roaming state, she's constantly going to be dealing ice damage, so that insane crit rate boost has 100% uptime. If you don't get Deep Sea Visitor, do not fret, because there is still some excellent, more accessible choices for Ellen. Another S-rank W engine is called the Restrained, her second best option. This will increase her ice damage by 20% in combat. Anytime a basic attack deals ice damage, it will increase by 12% and inflict more daze, which is basically toughness break. Basically, this W engine's a 100% uptime boost to Ellen's ice damage and daze, as long as you're using her roaming state and basic attacks optimally. Now we'll get into the A rank options, starting with Cannon Rotor. This will increase Ellen's crit rate by 8%, and when an attack lands a crit on an enemy, an additional 275% of the character's attack will be dealt as damage, triggering every 8 seconds. Those are the primary options I would give Ellen, but let's give an honorable mention to Electro Lip Gloss. When enemies are inflicted with attribute anomaly on the field, the equipper's attack increases by 10% and will deal an additional 15% more damage to the target. It's pretty solid for Ellen, since she will always be applying freeze and shatter to those opponents. Moving on to the bulk of the stats you're going to give a character, the disk drives. This information will be based on CBT3, and there could be some minor changes, although probably not too bad. Ellen Joe also has a few choices here as well. Remember that in Zenless you get a 4-piece set and a 2-piece, since there's a total of 6 slots. Option 1 is what I preferred during the CBT, so let's cover that first. The 4-piece set of Polar Metal states that the basic and dash attack damage increases by 28%, so you can see how that's already insane for Ellen. Additionally, when a squad member freezes or shatters an enemy, the buff will increase by another 28% for 12 seconds. Along with this, run a 2-piece set of Woodpecker Electro to raise her crit rate by 8%. The second option for sets is simply just an invert of these, and you'll still get really solid results. The 4-piece set of Woodpecker Electro still raises her crit rate by 8%. Additionally, when a basic EX special attack or dodge counter crits, Ellen will gain a stack of 9% attack boost. The duration of this stack will actually be independent for each type of move, basically meaning that it's a fairly constant uptime. Don't forget that your 4th through 6th slot of your disk drives are variable main stats. On the 4th slot, make sure you're either getting crit rate or crit damage. On the 5th slot, go for penetration percent, attack percent, or elemental damage percent. And on the 6th, anomaly mastery bonus is probably going to be your best bet. For your substats, in order of importance, crit rate or crit damage, followed by pen percent, followed by attack percent, and then attribute mastery. We also have to talk about our cute little helper friends, the Bangboos. Ellen's best Bangboo is the first banner one, Butler. She can also pair very well with the really easy to get Sharkboo. I actually had like 7 copies of Sharkboo by the end of the test. Now let's talk about talent level 1, which is basically the Eidolons of this game, versus Deep Sea Visitor. Of everything that could change for any character, Eidolons are probably the biggest chance, so we will be using the latest test as our information. Talent level 1 for Ellen states this: Ellen's uncharged scissor attack will give 3 flash freeze charges instead of 1, and the charged scissor strike will give 6 flash freeze. For each point of flash freeze spent, she gets a 2% increased crit rate for 15 seconds, stacking up to 6 times. Also note that the duration of each stack is calculated separately. This being a first eidolon of the game is actually insane, and will make sure that Ellen pretty consistently has those 3 flash freeze charges stacked. Overall, this is a huge DPS increase for our favorite Shark Girl, but how does it compare against her signature W engine? Recall that Deep Sea Visitor boosts her ice damage by 25%, or her crit rate by 20% when using a dash attack or dodge counter. Really what it'll boil down to is this. Do you want unconditional ice damage by 25% and crit rate by 20% just by attacking, or more flash freeze charges on the dash attack, and a 2% crit rate boost per flash freeze charge up to 12%. If you have one of those S-rank W engines we talked about earlier for Ellen, I would argue that talent level 1 is better. If you don't have the S-ranked options, then you should probably pull for Deep Sea Visitor. Overall, the more strong W engines you get anyway, the more universal they can be, and Deep Sea Visitor is still going to be very strong on other units. Ultimately, either route is perfectly fine, and you won't lose with either, so just pull whatever the heck you want, as you should be anyway. And there you have it, a full breakdown of everything regarding Ellen Jo. I hope this guide helped, and if you have any questions or any comments, feel free to discuss below. Also, feel free to let me know how I can improve the guide for next time. The next one I want to do is for Ben Beeger. And yeah, you do have to say it that way just because he's so cool. Anyway, let me know what you thought in the comments, and I would love to hear from all of you guys. Subscribe and follow for plenty more Zenless Zone Zero, Honkai Star Rail, and Gacha content, and I will see you in the next one. That's it. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.